All set.
All righty, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is listed in our schedule as a presentation on Rock Riverway, but I think it's bigger than that and has a number of elements to it. I'm not sure, Heidi, Ms. Zimmermeyer, you know I can say your name after all of these years, right?
Right.
I believe she's got to lead the conversation. We are all familiar with each other, I believe. So why don't we get started?
Okay. Thank you, Council President Scott. Heidi, if it's okay with you, I think maybe I will lead things off with a presentation, give everybody an update on where things are at with Rock the Riverway, and then we'll turn our focus over to the Rochester Downtown Partnership, which is an outgrowth of Rock the Riverway. I also want to take a moment to note some of our guests as well. Vinny Esposito, Regional Director, Empire State Development. Of course, Tammy Mayberry, Empire State Development, as well as Joe Stefko from ROC 2025, and as was mentioned, Heidi Zimmermeyer from RDDC, who will be helping lead this conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can go into it. So I think you all probably have seen some of the background on this, so I'm probably not going to spend too much time on that and get into really the projects and where things are at in the interest of time. But of course, as you know, Rock the Riverway focuses on our Genesee River, our primary natural asset and our main north-south access through the heart of the city. And this river has powered our entire existence from its earliest stages with the mills and leading to the industries that gave rise to America's first boomtown. But we never celebrated this river in the way that we should have. And that is what Rock the Riverway seeks to do by reversing our focus from turning our back to the river to making it our focus. And you know, these slides indicate what that river, what our Genesee River was seen as in the past, and the importance of celebrating the river as such an important asset for this community. And Rock the Riverway, as you know, it's built on a series of previous planning studies and efforts that were all around the river, but didn't necessarily always relate to each other. This was about recognizing all of the assets and all of the investments that were taking place on or around the river and filling in those gaps and making sure that everything that we're doing relates to each other and lifts all boats, for lack of a better term. The full vision for Rock the Riverway, as you know, is a $500 million program of investment, leveraging a nearly $3 billion economic impact, stretching from basically the university to the south and to, let's say, Lower Falls to the north. Focused again on our core urban riverfront. It's improvements to existing parks, as well as new parks and public spaces. It's upgrades to trails and new connections to our trails. Improvements to our public infrastructure, as well as public facilities, like the three major facilities located and clustered right on the river: the Blue Cross Arena, the Riverside Convention Center, and the Rundell Memorial Library, as well as positioning private development sites for infill development. And of course, $50 million awarded through New York State in 2018 to jumpstart this initiative. The great news is there's so much being done. We've made such incredible progress, and you can see that in terms of projects that have been completed, projects that are nearing completion and will be cutting ribbons on in the coming year, as well as a number of projects that are under construction. Everything is moving forward. Of course, there are completed projects, a number of them award-winning projects like the Promenade at Erie Harbor behind the Dinosaur and the Nathaniel apartment complex, which really sets a template for how some of these riverfront walkways and promenades will look and feel. The North Terrace at the Convention Center, which opened up that terrace to public access, and again, has some design elements that we want to weave throughout Rock the Riverway. Of course, the skate park has been probably the most visible change on our riverfront, taking an unused area in the interstate right of way, really a dead space between South Wedge and downtown, and bringing life and activity to this location. It's been a huge success. So successful that we are getting ready to begin design on phases 2 and 3. And ongoing investments at Blue Cross Arena, most recently the addition on Exchange Boulevard side, as well as upgrades inside the arena. So if you have been to an Amerks game, or I believe the Nighthawks have started their season or soon will, you'll see a lot of that work, including the new LED lighting inside of the arena. Construction, like I said, is ongoing. One of the projects that's rapidly approaching completion is the Rundell North Terrace. This one is taking that terrace, which had basically been an underutilized parking lot, and turning it into a great new public space that addresses the river and brings the public to the river to view this unique asset that we have. We had hoped that this would be complete this year, but with the supply chain issues we're facing, Canadian granite being one of the chief culprits, this project we will cut the ribbon on next year. Charles Carroll Plaza is actually phase 1 is just wrapping up, which was Sister Cities Bridge and the river wall. Phase 2 is just getting started. And you can see some of that new river railing on the west side of the river there, lighting upgrades for the Sister Cities Bridge. And like I said, phase 2 will actually focus on the park itself, turning this from a deteriorating, hardscaped plaza that was just not very welcoming place to something that is greener, more open, more accessible, and more approachable from all points. Another project that has really transformed our riverfront, that if you haven't seen it, please go out and take a look, is our West River Wall between Ford Street and Cornhill Landing. The improvements are not fully complete, but are getting there, and the area down by Ford Street has really transformed. This is just a rendering, but I will tell you, it looks a lot like this in real life. And of course, the last part of it that is not completed is where the community comes to the West River Wall. What we've named as North Star Commons, and this is an older rendering, but this plaza is the last part to be completed, and this connects the Cornhill neighborhood to the riverfront and brings new public art and educational opportunities to the riverfront. And this is just a relatively recent picture showing that transformation from the crumbling, aging flood control wall to something that's much more open, accessible, with views to the river, and a greatly upgraded Riverway trail as well. You may not think of this as a Rock the Riverway project, but it very much is, and that's the continuation of our Main Street streetscape improvements. This section from St. Paul and South Avenue over to Four Corners crosses the river, and of course, Main Street being our other primary access, the east-west access for the city. This is where those two come together, and so bringing that new enhanced streetscape with new benches and charging stations and new bus shelters and wayfinding kiosks and bike lanes and everything really brings this section of Main Street a new breath of freshness. A project that you probably won't see much unless you're down in the gorge is Stabilization of the running track bridge. This just hold this great structure together that the city purchased from CSX a while back. And this sets the stage for conversion of this structure to a bicycle and pedestrian facility directly connecting the El Camino with the Riverway Trail. We're completing the High Falls Overlook feasibility study, which looked at opportunities to better engage the visitors with views of High Falls, ultimately resulting in some recommendations for the future at High Falls Terrace Park. And we'll be breaking ground on a bunch of different projects next year. Genesee Gateway Park, the sort of earmuff-shaped park with two large parks at either end and a linear park connecting them along the river, along Mount Hope Avenue. Focused a lot of its improvements on the north end, but new basketball courts, a new playground, new plantings, as well as a new opportunity to actually get into the water with a boat launch, a hand carry boat launch in that location. This will also break ground in the spring. And there's a closer view of the master plan vision for it. Also breaking ground is at High Falls Terrace Park is upgrades to establishment of the brewery line trails. You go up there now by the brew house in Pont de Rennes, you know that there's a substandard walkway there next to an abandoned rail corridor. We are taking advantage of this opportunity to upgrade that, make it a standard high quality trail that leads to the overlooks of the falls in High Falls Terrace Park. It'll be fully accessible, well lit, and well designed. You can see some pictures of what's to come. Another project that was recently announced is the launch of Cornhill Navigation's tour boat on the Genesee River. This is a great opportunity to bring people to downtown, both people who are looking for a guided tour on the river, as well as our school students who will come for educational opportunities to learn about the river and ecology and history and all the programming that Cornhill Navigation offers. Cornhill Navigation is also taking up space at Cornhill Landing through the same program, and will be taking over harbor master responsibilities, which we expect a more visible presence will lead to significantly more people taking advantage of the docks at Cornhill Landing, especially as they have been dredged by the Canal Corp. We are looking at improvements to the underpass of CSX on St. Paul Street. We are trying to make headway with CSX to come up with some opportunities to fulfill this project and make this a less foreboding connection between High Falls and downtown on the east side. Pont de Rennes Bridge is in preliminary design. We're hoping to have some design, more refined design concepts to bring back to the public early in the new year. That will, well, here's some early concepts where we want to encourage more lingering on the bridge by actually creating some cantilevered spaces, and while serving the bicycle and pedestrian through demands that the bridge provides, as well as improvements at either end, both at Granite Mills Park on the west side, as well as the approaches to the Brewery Line Trail on the east side. Riverside Convention Center, this is the next phase, which is the completion of a new south terrace to the convention center, as well as an addition to the convention center that will address the river. This is in schematic design at the moment, coming up with some concepts that will get that public access benefit of bringing people again to the river, as well as providing opportunities for the convention center to better position itself for competition as we exit the pandemic. Another exciting opportunity is Blue Cross Arena, where we are looking at the riverside of the arena. These are preliminary design concepts that have been created for the restaurant and bar space that we are looking to bring to the riverside of the arena, so that the arena is an active space regardless of whether there is an event there or not. So both a daytime and a nighttime rendering here, just to give you an example of what could be. In the future, we have an RFP on the street right now for a restaurant operator. So if you know anybody who wants to, who's in the restaurant business and is interested in being part of this ongoing revitalization, please let me know, and we'll be happy to get them in contact with this RFP. The big project, and one that we are just getting ready to kick off design for, is the Aqueduct Reimagined project, where we will be taking the road deck off the top of the Broad Street road deck off the top of the historic 1842 aqueduct, and restoring that aqueduct at the historic level, bringing that in as a new grand public gathering space that unites all four quadrants of the city and enables us to complete the Riverway Trail through the heart of the city. I've said this before, you've probably heard me say it. Thousands of people use the trail south of Court Street, and tens use the trail north of Court Street. By completing the trail through the heart of downtown, we will bring thousands more people into the heart of downtown. And that will lead to, of course, more opportunities for our businesses in the core of our city. Why this image is not showing up, I don't know, but another project that we are getting ready to begin design on is the east side of the river, opposite Charles Carroll Plaza, between Main Street and Andrew Street, what we know as Crossroads Park. Largely a linear facility This is an opportunity to, again, improve the accessibility and make it part of the Riverway Trail system, and coordinating with the other things that are taking place in this area, including the hotel property. Front Street Promenade. This is the one that's holding back a bit. We continue to work with our partners at RG&E to advance this project. Another project you may not think about as Rock the Riverway is Interlude North, and we just had a very successful round of public engagement in unveiling our preferred concept for the future of this corridor. We could probably do a whole council work session on this project alone, so I'm not going to speak too much about it, except to point out, of course, that the Interloop is the other major barrier along our riverfront to completing the vision for Rock the Riverway and connecting the trail through the heart of the city, and this preferred concept addresses that. And here's just an example at St. Paul in Cumberland, the big highway interchange here at St. Paul in the Interloop. This is what it looks like today, and this is what it could look like in the future with the highway removed and infill development taking place, as well as improvements to the bicycle and pedestrian environment. Another recent announcement, it's great excitement, is the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, focusing on the area of downtown from the river to Clinton along Main Street, and really getting in there. We see this as really that last block or 2 blocks, that if we can get in there and affect change, we can really change the tide, make sure that the revitalization of downtown spreads throughout. More to come on that as we get into the planning process for that in January. And a new project, if you hadn't seen the announcements from the state, we are progressing with plans to bring a visitor center back to the High Falls Waterworks building on Browns Race, and we are looking at opportunities to take advantage of that building's position to get people into the gorge and actually bring the public to that. It's one of the most long-awaited improvements. It's something I hear about all the time when I'm out meeting with people. That when are we going to get the opportunity to be in that gorge? And that time is coming. We have funding now to complete the design of all of this, and then to renovate the building itself for that visitor center. Which leads me to my last slide, which is our transition slide, which is about the management entity, now known as the Rochester Downtown Partnership. This grew out of the Rock the Riverway program, where seed funding was established with the recognition that all of these new parks and public spaces and amenities that we're creating through Rock the Riverway may be best handled by a public-private partnership organization that can take a greater role in providing a higher level of service to these spaces. So that is what we have been working on behind the scenes in many ways for many months now. I'm going to turn it over to Heidi Zimmermeyer to go through a presentation on the Rochester Downtown Partnership. If there are any questions on any of the work that I just described, I'm happy to take answers to those questions probably at the end, or do we want to entertain them now? In that case, I think Heidi, maybe you can.
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
I just want to echo what you said before about how there could probably be a whole work session about the progress of Interlude North at this point. And I would just ask that we flag that as something that we actually schedule for early 2022.
Happy to. Great idea.
Thanks.
In the same vein, I'd like to see a work session on the removing the deck and the promenade on Broad Street.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Let's discuss how we can, what the right timing is for that, and make that happen in the new year.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric, I'll follow up with you about those.
Okay. Thanks, Katie.
You can continue on the next portion, Eric.
Great. Okay, let me just get our slideshow started here. Okay. Thank you, all of you, very much for the opportunity to share where we are with all of this. And as usual, Eric does a brilliant job of setting a lot of the backdrop and then teeing up what we're about to talk about. So what I would add to what Eric described, which is significant relative to everything along the Riverway, is that downtown, which kind of wraps around a portion of the river, has also become a pretty significant economic driver. We've seen over 2.5 billion invested downtown since the year 2000, and that doesn't include last week's 10 million announcement for the Downtown Revitalization Award. And I would just step back a minute and describe that right now, downtown is kind of market described as everything that is in what was the Interloop. Part of that's obviously come down. And it picks up High Falls, sometimes a piece of Cornhill, and it's now pushed over where the southeastern part of the Interloop was filled in, and picks up Alexander Street, both sides, between Monroe and just beyond East Ave. We have seen 750 million this year in projects that are planned, underway, and completed. And I may remind you that we're still in COVID and still dealing with the economic fallout from that. The 12 Rock the Riverway projects you've heard about, it's absolutely amazing what's happening with that, and so much progress. We are also tracking 38 projects that are in the development pipeline, including 18 housing projects and about 1,120 new units that are in the downtown pipeline now. It's also worth noting that we have 2 corporations that have chosen to relocate their headquarters to downtown. Butler Till has moved in a couple months ago, beautiful space on the Midtown block. And we've all heard about the Constellation Brands decision, which is big. That's a multinational corporation, and it's very exciting that they're taking a huge property with 6 buildings right on the river on the west side of downtown. So they come in sometime in 2024. The other thing to put on the table is that downtown is also an innovation zone. Before COVID, we were tracking 193 innovation and creative class enterprises that were located in the downtown zone. And today we now see 8 business incubators and accelerators. 7 of them are located right around the Liberty Pole area. And they've been serving 99 businesses that between them all have been working on site, and they've served over 800 other entrepreneurs and businesses just in the past year. And the business types range from kind of Main Street kinds of businesses to, fiber alley tech kinds of businesses as well. So right now we've got 8,860 people who call downtown home, and there will be over 2,100 more with the projects that are coming online in the next few years. We are tracking 122 office buildings. And before COVID, and we all know COVID has changed the game pretty dramatically, we did have 48,000 employees. We think now that less than 20% of those have returned to the office at this point in time. 5 hotels are downtown. There are 3 more in the pipeline that will add 300 more rooms. And we've got 5,200 higher ed students in 4 institutions downtown. And it's worth noting the Innovation Square project, which it's the only one of its kind in the country. And there are now 5 or 6, if I lost track of one of them, colleges and universities that are associated with that project in the former Xerox Tower. So this is the problem. We are not keeping pace with other cities. We have this remarkable comeback story for the center of our city, but the sidewalks and riverfront areas are still largely empty. And some of that's COVID, but this was going on before COVID. So many of us feel that it's time for an expanded downtown and riverfront management approach. And as Eric noted, there's money embedded in the 50 million from the state that's meant to be targeted toward a management entity. So we've got massive investments being made in this whole territory. We also know, and I mentioned that very few people have returned to the office. And I know we're still in COVID and we still have, executive order that has changed things again for how we operate in our office buildings. But what we do know is that once we begin recovering from COVID, we're going to need a far better street level experience downtown and along the riverfront, quite frankly, to re-engage remote workers. We ought to be thinking about how to make that experience better than working from your dining room table at home. We do also know that our existing model for managing all of this, including the new territories and properties that are going to be publicly available, that our existing model is underfunded chronically, that prior efforts to create a better long-term model, and that includes funding, have been unsuccessful for a variety of reasons, and that there's been somewhat of a disconnect between public and private efforts up until now. And we've got this vibrant downtown and a really exciting riverfront story that's developing. And this is important. If we can juice that, it's very important for continued regional economic growth. So we need real street and riverfront vitality. And two of these photographs, by the way, are from Rochester, the upper left and the lower right. And the others are from different places, ranging from, I think it might be Indianapolis on the lower left, Seattle on the upper right, and then Paris, France in the middle. So we have new funding that has been formally secured. We've got 2.98 million, and that's out of the Riverway funds. What is remaining that has been targeted toward management entity from Empire State Development. We have now secured 1 million in private funding from ROC 2025. I'd be happy to, and Joe Stefko's with us if anyone has questions about that organization. And RDDC is contributing all of its revenue toward this over the next 5 years, and that'll be more than 750,000. The goals for all of these funding sources are ultimately to secure long-term and sustainable funding, and it has been agreed to on the part of all of these players that we really need a business improvement district in order to be able to do that. And as Loretta knows, we've been through this process before, and we need to rethink how we approach this. And we are starting with a blank slate. So we're going to have the opportunity collectively to craft something that is what everybody wants and will work in our particular downtown at this point in time. And we also need to begin building a program of events and activities downtown in key places and along the riverfront, particularly as these new public spaces, our construction is finished and they're open for use. So I want to mention, for those of you around the table today that are not familiar with what a business improvement district is, I just want to give a thumbnail sketch of what they are. They're very popular self-assessment mechanisms that are used in cities clear across the country. There are over 2,000 of them in the US. There are 70 plus in the 5 boroughs of New York alone. Albany has 3. All of our thruway cities have a bid or a bid-like entity that's structured the same way. And they've been very, very successful. They've now spread as a model all the way around the world. They're in every continent. So, well, except for the Arctic and Antarctic, but every place else, and they're very popular. So what you do essentially is take a map, and a group defines a geography. And what happens then is that a whole group of people begin to talk about what kind of services are needed in that particular community at that particular time, and then how all of this is structured. But ultimately, the business improvement district pays for services that are enhanced and go above and beyond what the city is able to provide through the property taxes that everybody pays. There is a law in New York State that defines how bids are formed, what process needs to be used, and they have some very specific governance requirements. And all of that is set in motion already. And so whatever happens here would clearly need to be in compliance with that. So these, I think that business improvement districts are as popular as they are because they're both flexible and democratic. They can be taken down if the payers in the district don't want it anymore. If they don't like how it's being run, they can change who runs it. If they don't like the services, they can change that program of what's provided. If they don't like the budget, that can be changed. And it's there, as I mentioned, there are cities clear across New York State that have a form of this, and we have a lot of examples to look at to decide what might work here in Rochester. So these are the things that have to be part of what is formally called a bid district plan that ultimately goes to council. It first goes to property owners or whoever else is in the district will be paying, and that has to be approved by vote. Then it goes on to city council. City council then sends it on to the state controller that then approves it according to state law. And then if it gets approved, it comes back to council, who will then actually approve the formation of the assessment district itself, and then will enter into an agreement to pass the money that's raised to a bid management entity. And so there is a very clear and a very deep process, which has a lot of democratic points that's required in order to get to the point of moving all this forward. We are experiencing what is a very rare opportunity in our community. ROC 2025, the state through ESD, the city and RDDC had been working jointly for a year to develop the proposal that is now being moved forward. That we've had support from the state, the county, the city, and from private sector leaders. And for the first time, the stars and planets seem to be aligned, and this may be our chance to begin to modernize how we approach the management of the center of our city. And because of ROC the Riverway, we now have the opportunity to manage both. There are special conditions with the funding that has been secured so far. It's all being viewed as temporary interim funding only, 5 years max. That means that there's going to have to be the creation of a long-term sustainable funding mechanism, and that is believed to be a business improvement district. And in order to move all this forward, we needed to create a new public-private leadership entity, quite frankly, for downtown, and one that doesn't exist today. It does exist today, but it didn't exist before this month. The seed funding is giving us what's essentially a fully funded 5-year runway to road test a different downtown and riverfront management model, to show the impact of that and create proof points that it's working, and then to essentially stand up a new downtown and riverfront business improvement district and get it up and running. So we've got a lot of next steps. We need to complete a lot of paperwork relative to the state money. The Rochester Downtown Partnership needs to approve the budget and 2022 work plan. Funding disbursements need to be based on milestones achieved, and that's been set out very clearly. The Rochester Downtown Partnership has been formed. It's had its first meeting. We have a variety of corporate formation tasks, filings, and other approvals that need to go on in the next month or two. And we also, the partnership needs to form 2 key committees in January. One is a bid formation committee, and one is a community advisory committee. And we can talk about what those are and what the roles are for those particular entities. But the community advisory committee is a way to bring in a variety of different community voices, ranging from folks from neighborhoods, people from different industry sectors, residents, businesses, and others in the community that ought to have a say in how the management of downtown moves forward, so that the community itself can be assured that people will see themselves in these new spaces and that what's important to the community will be addressed. In order to do this, the Rochester Downtown Partnership has no staff. So the concept is that they will enter into a services agreement with RDDC, and that RDDC will operate as essentially the pre-bid management vehicle. But once the business improvement district is formed, and we're hoping that's within 2 to 4 years, then RDDC essentially goes out of business, and the Rochester Downtown Partnership will ultimately become the new bid management entity, restructured to comply with New York state law. But its leadership and its modus operandi will shift to actually be the operating entity for all of this. And in case you wanted to know, here's who is currently on the Downtown Partnership Board. And some of these positions are, these seats are positional. The mayor of Rochester, and of course, as of the 1st of December, that was James Smith and still is today. The Rochester City Council President, Loretta Scott, Monroe County Executive. We have a member of the New York State Senate, specifically Jeremy Cooney, and a member of the New York State Assembly, Damon Meeks, and both of those people have as part of their district downtown. Empire State Development has a seat, which is an advisory non-voting seat, and Vinny Esposito is occupying that. We have Norm Jones as DES Commissioner, currently as a representative of the Downtown Enhancement District. The board chair for RDDC and an appointed RDDC member, so that would be Chris Hill and Andy Galena. And ROC 2025 is appointed Joe Stefko, its president and CEO. The CEO of the chamber, Bob Duffy. The executive director of the convention center, Jim Brown. Visit Rochester is appointed Rachel Labor Polvino. Downtown property owner, Dawn Williams Fuller. Resident Stephanie Schwingle, who's also runs the Washington Square Neighborhood Association. Sean Dunwoody as a community member, also representing the arts community. University representative Ebony Miller Wesley, who wears a number of hats, in fact. And Eugenio Marlin as a community advisory committee representative. And for the foreseeable future, until a business improvement district is formed, the president and CEO of RDDC, right now that's me, will serve as the executive director for the Rochester Downtown Partnership. So moving forward, we need to begin a multi-year process to design and stand up, get established a business improvement district. The thought right now is to hire a national firm. There are 3 of them that are experts at this, that represent neutral players that can come in and take the temperature of downtown stakeholders and many others, and begin to put together what has to be done according to New York state law to get it set up. And then we would begin placemaking work, because that's really what this all is. There are events and communications firms that are very experienced and very knowledgeable in a variety of ways in those 2 spaces, engage a whole range of partners, and there are many of them. We've already begun to work with a number of them, and then to tap creative community voices. And that has to do with creating events and a way of thinking about events, and by the way, art and performance that represent the whole community, and to assure that what happens isn't going to be Eurocentric, and that we'll also recognize that we have an incredible amount of talent residing in our community, and to try and get some folks involved in thinking how incredibly creatively we can begin moving this placemaking work forward. You may or may not know, this is a great time. I've announced my own retirement. That will likely take place in the middle of 2022. So the timing is actually excellent. I was meant to be retiring at the end of this month, but my term has been extended to help the organization find the best next leader to kind of move the community forward and everything that I've just described. We have hired a specialized executive search firm that will be conducting both a national and a local search for just the right combination of skills, talents, abilities, and kind of personality and leadership style to match what our community most needs. The goal is to improve the human experience. And this is not so much about finding ways to schedule traditional activities and events in public spaces. It's more to begin thinking differently about how do we create street level vibrancy. And so it'll be a blend of events and activities, but also thinking differently about how to do that. For example, and I'm not suggesting we should or shouldn't do this, but the idea of using empty street level retail spaces as part of a retail incubation project. So again, it's not a traditional event, but it's a different way of thinking about how do you create a more active, vital experience at the street level. Also, we'll need to target core riverfront locations. And as Eric described, there's a lot in motion as they peel out of the pipeline for development and begin to be ready to be used. They will be added to the list. Parcel 5 is a key one. And there are other downtown spaces as well that are prime to bring the community together in new and unique and exciting ways. We're clearly going to be working as a very tight team with the city's special events staff and others in the city, the convention center, which has right now key role in helping to populate Parcel 5 with events and activities, and many other players. And we also want to engage a wide demographic of people and creatives to brainstorm new ideas, kind of blow the lid off the box, so to speak. So why should we even be doing this? And I would suggest two things. This is all about creating a place and places where everyone in our community can see themselves and where everybody feels welcome. And we need to be very intentional about how we do that. And also, in the end, it's about who we are as a community and how we project that in everything we do moving forward. So those two things I would leave you with as thoughts. And I would just open it up for any questions. I can stop screen sharing if that's useful and get back to a regular Zoom screen. And we do have two of the key funders here on this Zoom call. Joe Stefko from ROC 2025 and Vinny Esposito representing Empire State Development. Any questions or advice, thoughts?
Madam President?
Yes.
Yeah, if I can just say, and the president, I think, echoed this to us as council members, and obviously I'll be ascending a new role in about 2 weeks. This is a very, very important conversation and work that's starting downtown. We know how important downtown is to our larger community, but also to our region. So I want to thank Heidi and Vinny and Joe, who are on the call, for being here today. And I think that as you see from both the presentations, we have so much work to do, but this should make us feel good. We have a lot of opportunity. A lot of this work has been talked about for years. So it's not new. All this is really building upon stuff. And at the last meeting, the first meeting that Downtown Partnership had, President Scott put it best when she said a lot of this stuff has been talked about for years. So we finally have the opportunity to actually move this forward, and it's very exciting. It's going to take a lot of work, but I'm just happy to see that we're getting off the ball to actually have the opportunity to really have what every other downtown in every other part of the country has. We have the opportunity to finally do that, and Rochester should be no different. So I'm excited about this. And again, I thank you all for the presentation, and I thank the council president for making space for this group to be able to come and present.
Vinny, I'd love to have a few words from you before we and the other funder before we go forward?
I'd be happy to, Madam President. Thank you. And I really want to thank Eric and Heidi. They do an outstanding job teeing this up. Thank the mayor-elect for his comments. I just want to make a few additional points. And one is that this is exciting that we're finally getting to a lot of the work we've talked about for years, and that the state and ROC 2025 money will allow us to have the runway to begin to set up a structure for long-term success. That really is exciting to me. One other point that I want to really make sure everybody understands is that the work that we're going to be doing through RDP with the funding in place and with the bid eventually would all be additive to what the city already does. It's intended to enhance the services you're already providing from everything from a maintenance point of view to an events point of view, so that we can take downtown to the next level. But the thing that most excites me about what we are creating, and Heidi talked about the stars aligning, is that we have established a real public-private partnership already. It's just started, but we've established it. That not only will it be able to set up a bid, and not only will it be able to prioritize how the state funding will pan out for the next couple of years, but it's my hope that it'll be a structure and a foundation that really brings community members, public sector leaders, and private sector leaders together face to face on a regular basis to address any number of issues that impact downtown, which we all work on in different ways, but always don't come together to address and set priorities together. So honestly, that's the thing that excites me most about this, despite all the wonderful projects I work on with Eric and with others, and the opportunity that the DRI presents. I just think that we're attacking projects, we're improving the physical space and face of our city, but we're really setting up a true partnership opportunity that could last well beyond all of us.
Okay. And Mr. Stefko?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. I don't know that I could add anything new to what my colleagues have already said. I would just amplify a couple of points. I mean, number one, this is perfectly aligned with one of ROC 2025's 5 primary focus areas. Our board enthusiastically endorsed both this concept and the financial support for the downtown partnership and bid concept at its meeting in October. So very much looking forward to getting this off the ground. And one other point that I would reiterate, I think this funding gives this concept an opportunity to start now while we're building the bid, while we're building that kind of long-term sustainable framework. There's so much good going on already. This really builds on that momentum in a way that doesn't lose any time in standing this concept up over the next 2, 3, 4 years as we're building that sustainable bid. So it gives us the ability to begin running right away while we're building that long-term framework, something that I'm really excited about, and certainly on behalf of ROC 2025's board, something that we're really excited about helping the city with. So thank you very much for this opportunity today.
This is indeed a tremendous opportunity to advance some concepts that we've struggled with over time. Some of the things that held us back previously were concerns about financing. Well, we got quite a bit of money on the table this time, and that will definitely help grease the skids, at least temporarily. So we have to be very mindful of whatever gets built, that at some point after we've gone off the runway and onto the unpaved road, that we still have the authority and responsibility to keep that going. The other thing that I caution about is that the bid, that there be great care in defining, because Heidi, you referred to the bid being, I forget what area, and my question was like, who said it was that? Well, I know that there's going to be a process where it will be officially defined, and we need to be very clear about who it is that's involved in that definition, because the people within that are going to be the ones who have to pay the enhanced fees. They'll enjoy the benefits of it, as will others who visit downtown, but they're the ones who will pay the enhanced fees. I'm mindful that downtown and the bid are a part of Rochester, the greater Rochester. And whatever we can do to ensure that we have this magnificent, outstanding, everybody want to be there area in the midst of a great city, and that the city does not feel that it is somehow the less than, then we will have made tremendous progress and will benefit the entire community fully. Questions, anybody?
Yes, yes, President Scott.
Councilmember Gruber?
Thank you. I have two questions, but before I ask them, let me first say congratulations, Heidi, on your retirement. That's a whole lot to present and then say you're retiring, but congratulations, Mazel Tov, and well deserved. And before I have the two questions, I'd also say I would imagine that as council votes on these things, there'll be more meat to the bones in terms of like governance. But if there are things related to governance that you think would be helpful for people to see now that are fleshed out, you know, certainly wouldn't hurt to give us some lead time of looking at those things. My two questions. One, I can't believe I've become one of the older, longer termed members of council over here, but I remember when Jim Clore first came to us and we had a couple presentations and there was a couple of studies, and it seemed like Jim was an expert on some of this work. And you mentioned at the end, Heidi, that there's going to be you're seeking out an additional consultant, one of three in the country who have expertise in this stuff. I just, you know, in the interest of kind of time and urgency, what is it that you're looking for that's beyond the scope that Jim had provided?
Jim actually made the recommendation that we seek one of these three firms that have staff with a variety of expertise. He's mostly a solo guy and has had a very long career. And he's been working very closely with us and is in fact involved in the search process at RDDC. He's at every search committee meeting and has made some really powerful recommendations on how to approach all this. And based on what he knows about our community, what he thinks would be most, would work best for us moving all of this forward in the best possible way. And he's the guy that gave us the three firms that he said, one of these three are that's what you're going to want. So he's been fantastic. He's been great.
And so the expense of additional studies and consultants like that, that's going to come from the generous funding that ESD and 2025 gave already?
Correct. And RDDC. All of that is covered.
Okay, thank you.
Which is the beauty about this is that we, to President Scott's point, that we've now got help to be able to do this in the right way with the right expertise. And it isn't going to bankrupt us in the process. We've got everything set up to really move toward a successful outcome for the first time. And again, President Scott is right on the money. This has got to be done in the most deeply democratic way possible. And you've got it, otherwise we're going to misstep. And she knows. But she's been involved with the previous iterations of this process and knows how important that is.
I appreciate that. We'll look forward to seeing which firm you choose, and I'm sure they'll engage somewhat with at least whoever council's representative is moving forward. My second question is a question that I asked, I think every time Jim came to the table, and I'll just kind of repeat the question. Don't necessarily expect a very detailed answer yet. But, you know, everyone's spoken about how long this has taken, which is, you know, understandable because it's complex and there's a lot to it. But in the meantime, while it's taken a long time, there have been a number of organizations that have stepped up and in a more piecemeal fashion have done some of the programming and organizing that we're talking about. So as an example, you know, the Washington Square neighbors do the movie in the park. You have the Friends of the Skate Park who have done a remarkable job of programming the skate park during the middle of a pandemic. And I just want to understand at some point how this new entity is going to make those organizations and those entities appreciated So, like they
Right.
so because they stepped into a void, but also how we have one coordinated entity taking over all of it. And maybe that's not something that's fleshed out yet, but I just wanted to kind of lay that out there. If there is an answer, I'm happy to listen.
Yeah, and you're raising, I think, one of the most important issues for the community because it's a question of trust and also a question of engagement. And I find what Buffalo did with Canal Side to be one of the most powerful statements about how you think differently about all of this. When Canal Side was opened, a call was put out to the whole community. Bring us anything. All we're going to do is help coordinate schedules. Bring us anything you might want to do. It could be a church with a choir performance. You know, it could be a Little League ice cream social. It could be yoga on the green. Could be anything. And what that
I
did.
want to amplify, Heidi, can I amplify exactly what you're saying? Because don't think of this as taking over. This is now an entity that will be able to coordinate and add fuel to the incredibly creative groups in our community. City Events is still going to do their thing. The Friends of the Rochester City Skate Park are still going to be there. We might be able to help fund some great ideas they have to make the skate park or its area even better. You know, Washington Heights Neighborhood Association is represented directly on the board. So this is, you know, the opportunity to demonstrate what extra dollars and coordination focused on downtown on top of what's already happening can do to take downtown to the next level. So the whole idea will be to better engage those creative forces and organizations in our community. That's the whole point to this.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a
Any
comment.
Councilmember Lubia?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this presentation. I was recently in Tempe, Arizona, and really geeked out over the public spaces that they have there and could see some of those similar types of utilizations in Rochester. And when I went to look it up, I saw their plan that looked so much like what you all just presented. You know, continue things that built on each other, that allowed flow from one area to another, and that really connected and had kind of that holistic idea. So I'm really excited about this, and thank you all for putting the work into this. In terms of
take a look at Tempe.
Yeah,
that's
I'll send you the document.
That's excellent. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, Mary, I'm going to
David,
Tempe in 3 months for a wedding. So you got to tell me what you looked at so I can learn the same lessons.
I will. The place that really blew my mind was a place called Bunny Park. And it looks a lot like what we're trying to do with Common Ground and the play spaces. Obviously a different climate. But I'm excited, and I'm curious to dig into the business improvement district. It fits in with some conversations that we've been having with Washington Square neighbors and some of the churches around there about the idea of public bathrooms. And we had been talking about a business improvement district, so I'm actually happy that this is already rolling. I guess my question is maybe along the lines of President Scott, how will the area be defined? Will there be one big one, or is there an opportunity for smaller ones that have a different focus?
I would say that we are at the very front end. So it's a blank slate in terms of geography. And also your question is a very intuitive one about, is it just one big district, or can you have sort of sub-districts within that? And because this will also include part of the riverfront area, I think that's something that's going to be very deeply looked at. And you're raising a question about needs of there are 13 different neighborhoods in what we call downtown, which may or may not, those boundaries may have nothing to do with what the bid ultimately looks like. And so it's going to depend on a whole lot of factors, but that's an interesting question about individual neighborhood needs and the question about public restrooms.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's been an issue downtown for decades.
San Francisco has done some really great work in that area that we're trying to learn from right now, but we'd love to connect on that work.
I'd love to learn more about that. That's
great.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? If not, we look forward to the coming phases of this really powerful and exciting opportunity. I'm looking forward to watching you all make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And we
Thank you, Madam
promise-
President, and thank you again for
We
this
promise-
opportunity and all your wonderful service.
Absolutely.
I echo that because I've known you for a long time, President Scott, and I really, you've been a remarkable leader in this community, and I, as a resident of the city, am very grateful for that. And I would also just add the offer moving forward that we can determine how often council wants to get briefings, even if they're shorter than this one, just to make sure that every step of the way that council members feel like they understand what's going on with this.
I'm sure that's going to be set up because I've spoken to a number of my council colleagues already to have impressed upon them just how important this is. We got a lot of important initiatives going on, but this is going to be one that encompasses a lot of territory and will have extremely long-term impact. So there will be frequent, I'm sure, updating on it with council members. So once again, thank you. And thank you, Heidi. We're going to miss you. What, 25 years or something like that?
38, but who's counting?
Oh, my goodness.
18 is president, but 38 with RDD.
Okay, excellent. We thank you. Okay, so I want to wish everybody a happy holiday. Happy, safe, take care.
Thank you.